Last year, we were really having trouble with my son. He's 9 now. At that point, he was finishing 3rd grade. And each year had been such a struggle for him, starting with kindergarten. I mean, in the morning, I couldn't get him awake in time for school. It would be a rush to the bus, getting his clothes on, getting his outdoor clothes on. I'd have to do his backpack. You could see him through the window. He'd sit down and his head would slump. And it was like not a happy thing for him. He'd get to school. He didn't interact well with other kids. Anytime he had to concentrate and focus, his reaction was to get goofy. He was the class clown because that let him get away from doing the work. He was hiding the fact he couldn't do it. He was covering up. And each year the teachers would tell me at our conferences, well, you know, it's an age thing. He'll mature. It'll get better. The next year, same thing. It'll get better. And it didn't. So last year at the end of 3rd grade, bless his teacher, she said, we need to talk. We went to Wise Choice Educational Services, and that's when things really started to change for us. It was remarkable. Everybody that knows us and has seen him growing is, wow, what's happened? He's changed so much. And there's a growing process all children go through, but this wasn't just growing. This was just like the doors had opened and my son had come out. There he was. I guess we started with the neurodevelopment work, and those were body exercises. I really didn't know what to expect when we started doing this. It wasn't something I'm familiar with at all. So having him lie on a table and slide his hands and legs and turn his head seemed a little goofy, but you know what? It started to work. In terms of his thinking, he's always been a very thoughtful child, very, I don't say emotional, but sensitive to situations. But he never talked about it. At the end of 3rd grade, I discovered he'd been hiding in the washroom every lunch break for half the year because the other kids were bullying him a bit because he was so goofy and annoying to them. But he never told us. He couldn't express himself. You would say, you don't look happy, what's wrong? Is something bothering you? And he'd just say, oh, I don't feel good. He always had headaches, he always had stomach aches, he just never felt good. So we addressed his diet, we tried to get him more exercise, but none of it made a difference. Now, probably 8 or 10 sessions into the work, he'd say, I don't like this food, or I don't want that. A lot of negative feedback, but it was feedback, and it allowed us to start helping him in doing what he felt he needed. As it progressed, oh my gosh, he'd start making observations. We saw a homeless man on the street over the summer, and he was just heartstruck at seeing this. But instead of saying, that poor guy, he's like, Mom, what can we do to help him? He'd become so much more proactive. He wanted to change things and make a difference. And that had never been there before. I believe he felt that way inside, but he couldn't, it wouldn't come out. So I you know, who knows what's been hiding in there all these years. It's just remarkable. Process what he's seen and come out with these remarks and theories and observations. And it's just, even if it didn't help his grades at school, that's been worth every session we've gone to, is to have a little boy who can engage now and feel like he's important and he makes a difference. And he's more patient with his sometimes pushy sister, you know. So the household has been much easier. He wakes up before I do most mornings now. He's dressed. He's practically made his own breakfast. That never happened before. Yeah, the neurofeedback is, it's just like it's fine-tuning the organization in his brain for him. And it's helped his short-term memory. Before, you'd tell him to go get his socks, and he'd see a bird out the window, squirrel, And 5 minutes later, well, we're going to go. Where's your socks? Oh, now he's gotten the socks before I even tell him. He's gotten things lined up. He's ready to go. He's like my little organizer. It's amazing. He's got the answers, but in school they have to explain how they got the answers, and that's still difficult for him. He's got to write it out, and it's coming along. It doesn't put him in tears anymore, but it's still something he has to really focus on. One nice thing, he's not the class clown anymore. He's become a more responsible student. He's got friends, he's engaged, he wants to go to school because they can talk about things now. Just on the social end, it's been huge. He didn't really have any friends before. We'd hang out with different kids, but it was nothing special. He just didn't have a real bond with anybody. But now there's a couple boys that he's got things in common with, and he'll come home and say, do you know what so-and-so said, and do you know what this guy said? And I go, oh, wow. They'll get on the phone and work on their little computer projects after school. So, yeah, he's part of the group, and it's really developing. It's been amazing. With the neurofeedback, one thing I'd commented on is he was always, he'd go to sleep during class. He'd just blank out. Now he pays attention. And how we recognize that is during his neurodevelopment work, anytime something made him feel pressured, he'd get itchy, itch his legs. It was just every part of his body except his brain was going. So what Mrs. Day has been working with is to calm his brain down so that it can be more awake and more focused. And it's amazing, the itchiness is gone. He's not falling asleep. I call it falling asleep. He's not tuning out during class and disappearing. He's there for it. And so it's just a more calm but more energetic child. It's hard to explain, but that's it. He's more there. And that's that balance in the brain. So it's been fascinating to watch and very exciting.